Welcome. I'm Intuitive Sid. And today I'm going to tell you my little story about growing up in a Jehovah's Witness cult and what that does to a person. My channel here on YouTube is about self-improvement through spirituality. But before I got here, I had to go through a lot of things to realize who I was and why I'm here. And I felt like these things were put into my path to bring me where I am today. And part of that path was the Jehovah's Witness cult. And I'm just burning some sage because this is a very heavy topic. And I'm going through a lot of stuff right now, so I'm already feeling bad. But I'll be all right. I just feel that it's time to tell my story. It's time for the healing to begin. And how do we heal? By talking about what we've been through. So my parents were both in it when I was born for at least a couple generations. My first memories of, going to the meetings as a little child were not good, forced to get dressed in sweaty dresses and, pantyhose and things. Kids don't like that stuff, right? Forced to be sitting still and being quiet for hours. That's impossible for a little child. That's like expecting a baby, to be a robot. What the F, right? So my earliest memories are being spanked at the meetings all the time. Almost every time we went, I would be spanked because I was a hyper child. And there's no way you're going to make me be still unless you drug me or something, right? I was very rambunctious. And so all I remember was being taken to the back or being taken outside and spanked. Those are my earliest memories. Later, I remember as I grew up a little more, let's say 9, 8, 10 years old. Kind of, a little more used to it by then because I'm growing up in it and this is something that's happening 3 times a week, going to church. And so by the age of 8, 9, 10, I'm starting to present the magazines at the door, learning how to be a salesman for the organization, peddling their books and their magazines, right? And I remember going to the door, like one of my very first times, my dad was teaching me how to be a salesperson. And he's like, here you go, just give them the magazines, smile, look real cute. And we're asking 50 cents at the time to pay for the magazines. I think now they're free. They have to give them away because nobody wants them. But yeah, so I'm like, hi, we're Jehovah's Witnesses and we're selling these magazines. Would you like to buy them? And of course, most of the time they bought them for me because I was a cute little kid and they were charmed by me. And I think Jehovah's Witnesses used the kids a lot for that reason. So yeah, those were one of my earliest memories. Later on, let me mention this. My family moved a lot when I was young. So I remember 3rd grade, I moved 3 times. I would say total, I moved maybe 20 times before I was in 4th grade. So that was hard. Always new schools, always new congregations, always new people coming in and out of my life, never having anyone to grab onto except my parents, who were not stable. I mean, they tried to be. We all tried to be stable, but we can only do the best we can, right? And so finally we get to this town, and I'm in my teenage years. So, things are starting to get more hectic for me personally. I'm going through stuff personally in my own body and things like that. By this time, I'm kind of already broken by the cult. I'm used to going to meetings. I'm used to being quiet. I'm used to doing what I'm told. It breaks your spirit, I remember not being allowed to be who I wanted to be. I mean, you know, forget about holidays and all that. That's a given, right? We don't get holidays. We don't get birthdays. We don't get treated special, hardly ever. If you do, you're very lucky. There is no special things for Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't celebrate themselves. They might celebrate an anniversary, but that's probably it. And that was very depressing as a kid, and I didn't realize what was happening to me. Socially, what it does to you is it separates you from everyone else. People don't really know how to deal with a cult. They don't know how to deal with somebody who's so different and so religiously strict. So obviously they don't want anything to do with you, right? And so you lose out on having good connections. You lose out on making good connections because of it. And I did get lucky and meet a few people along the way who were nice to me. And I did make connections with a few people who were really nice, and they helped me get through times at that time, you know. And I still talk to a couple of those people. But honestly, it's been really, really hard to trust and build any kind of relationship with anyone. It's definitely hard. Because we were trained in the cult that outside people are dangerous. They're evil. And even though now you know the truth, you know that that's all bullshit, somehow it's still ingrained into your mind. Somehow it's still a part of your programming, and it's like you fight the whole rest of your life trying to break that programming. Just burning some Palo Santo because I need some calmness. I remember, I think it was 6th grade. I was out in service as usual, and I hated it. I would fight it. I didn't want to do it, but I had to because my parents are in charge. So we went out door to door one day, and we knock on this door, and one of my classmates opens the door. And how does that feel? It feels humiliating, right? I'm sure some of you out there can relate. They look at you and they laugh, or they get this look on their face like, what? What are you doing here at my house? Why are you dressed like that? What's this? And then my dad noticed that I was embarrassed because I looked down immediately. So my dad started talking to him and, you know, gave him the magazines, whatever. And the guy's just smiling. And my dad's like, what, do y'all know each other? And I'm like, yeah, he's in my class. And my dad's like, oh, okay, well, hi, nice to meet you. You know, whatever. And then we walk away, and I'm super embarrassed. So I get to school on Monday, and of course he told everybody, Sid came to my house this weekend. Yeah, tell him, Sid, right? That was so embarrassing. So really, you lose a lot of your self-respect and dignity as a Jehovah's Witness. Maybe not everyone. I guess if I would have not gone to public school and I would have been taken out and just put into the cult without any kind of outside interaction, possibly would have been a better experience, who knows, but not in the long run. But like I say, just be grateful for how things happen to you, because everything happens for a reason, even though it may not seem like it. Next, I'm trying to remember what else. Yeah, well, so after that, being embarrassed and stuff, I started changing a little. By the time I got to high school, I was noticing a lot of things about my parents. I was noticing their lack of love, their lack of real love, their lack of caring about what I want, caring about my interests. Anytime I wanted to do something, it was always usually no. And so that made me feel really bad. I felt so restricted. I felt so held back. Like, no, you're not allowed to bloom. It's like they kept me in a state of a closed flower. I'm not allowed to open my petals and experience what it feels like to bloom in the natural state. So it's like a rose that's picked, put in the refrigerator as a bud for so long, right? And so I became depressed. if you want to back up a little bit, back to junior high, I was so depressed one time that I actually wrote a letter to who I thought was my best friend at the time. And this was a worldly person who I had met at school that I had kind of had a friendship with. And I wrote her this letter talking about how much I hated my life and how much I didn't want to be here anymore. And this was 8th grade, you guys. I remember going to my room with like a small knife, and I leaned against my closet. I was all alone at home that day. I think my parents and my sibling was gone. And I put the knife against my heart like this with the blade. I could feel the blade against my skin, and I started poking it into me. But I didn't pierce my skin. I just kind of poked it. And I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I wanted to kill myself, but I didn't want to kill myself because I knew there was so much to look forward to. In the back of my head, something was telling me, this isn't going to be it. I knew that I would be 18 someday, even though I felt like that was an eternity away. And I knew that one day I would be an adult and I would be able to make my own choices. And another thing that kind of saved me was I was a really big fan of Mariah Carey back then. She was huge at the time. Vision of Love, Anytime You Need a Friend. And I heard that song in my head. And it made me put the knife down and say, you know what? I don't have to do this. I'll just keep pressing on, right? And so I did. But I wrote this letter to tell my friend because I felt like I didn't have anyone else. And I just needed to talk about it. It's a normal human reaction to want to talk about feeling bad, right? So I guess she didn't really know how to handle it. So she gave the letter to her teacher, who gave the letter to my counselor. And as you know, school counselors really are not really counselors. They're not really therapists. They're really just there to do the crap work teachers don't want to do. So she calls me into the office and she asks me about the letter. And I just play it off like it's a joke. It's like, yeah, I was just joking. I'm not serious. I'm just joking. And she proceeds to scold me for joking about such a serious topic instead of realizing that I am feeling this way for real, but I don't want to tell you. She calls my mom while I'm there and tells her about the letter, which, wow, that was huge because my parents don't like to be embarrassed. And I believe that my mother is a psychopathic, narcissistic person. I don't know for sure, of course, because she's never been officially diagnosed, but that's what I believe. And so, you know, when I get home, I was punished for embarrassing my family. I was not taken to therapy. I was not given any help. I was not given a talk about why. Nothing. Just, you're embarrassing us. Don't ever do that again. So I guess this kind of changed me a little bit. Going into high school, I started having less belief in the truth. The truth. They call it the truth. How convenient, right? I was starting to believe, little by little, things weren't adding up. Not to mention the way my parents were treating me also kind of made it feel like this isn't right. This isn't a family. This isn't how it's supposed to be. I tried really, really hard at one point. I remember like my first year of high school to get on my parents' good side by becoming an unbaptized publisher. I was giving talks on the platform. I was going out in service. I was doing like 8 hours, 7 hours a week with other people, you know. and sometimes my family would go. And it seems like even though I was doing all that, it still wasn't good enough to get the love and acceptance that I really needed from my parents, even though it seemed like I was doing everything they wanted. So that was very discouraging, and I realized that I can't please them. Even if I do what they want, they're still not happy and they still aren't going to love me. And I didn't really understand this at the time, but looking back now, I realized that they were just sick individuals themselves who are suffering from mental illness, and they were dragged into this religion. And now they're also trapped by the religion, by the cult, I should say, because they aren't really using their hearts anymore. They're not using their intuition. They're not using their soul to think about things. They're under mind control. And that's hard to deal with. As high school progressed, I became more rebellious. And what led to me becoming so rebellious was my dad would go out of town a lot. And so with my dad not around, my mom wasn't as strong as him to get us to go to meetings. You know, he was the driving force in the family, of course. And now that he was working out of town, it was up to mom to get us ready to go to meetings and get our spiritual bullshit in, right? And so I just got tired of it. I didn't like going to meetings anymore. I was becoming a rebellious teen, and I was seeing my mother's true colors for who she really was. She was a very neglectful, hateful, mean person. I felt so rejected by my mom. And she was my only parent who was around because my father had left to go work out of town in another state far away. So that was really hard, feeling so alone. I wasn't allowed to go to any school functions. I wasn't even allowed to have any friends at school. They couldn't come over. I couldn't really talk to anybody on the phone unless they were in the cult. But I still would sneak and talk to certain people, and I still would have certain friends. Not very many, but I had a couple. One day, I refused to go to the meeting. And so my mom took off her high heel shoe and started beating me with it. And it really, really hurt, not just physically, but emotionally, because it just cemented the fact that I knew my mom didn't love me. And now I knew that my mom was an abusive person. And what really hurt even more than that was that once we did get to church, once we got to the meeting, she totally switched to a different person. She put a big old smile on her face and put on that fake voice like she's the happiest woman in the whole effing world. She just won millions of dollars. She's whatever. She acted like she was so happy, hugging people, smiling, acting like everything was great. And nobody knew that she had just finished beating the crap out of me with her high heel shoe, and I had bruises on me, and I was bleeding in some places. And she didn't care. She was laughing and smiling. So that's what really led to my rebellion. Feeling that my parents didn't give a shit. And they're forcing me to be in this cult that I don't like. I don't like anything about it. I don't like the teachings. I don't like the beliefs. I feel like I'm being scapegoated. And I didn't know all these terms back then, but I just felt so ugly. And I didn't know how do I deal with this, you know? It was really hard. On top of that, there were other Jehovah's Witness children that I went to school with whose parents were not strict at all. They were allowed to be in band, play football, and be all kinds of stuff that was considered worldly. And they had elders. There was one man one boy at my school who his father was a freaking elder, and he was in sports and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, why is that? I told my parents one day, how is that possible that this elder's son is allowed to do these things and I'm not even allowed to be in band? I wasn't allowed to be in band or anything. I couldn't do anything. And I was told, mind your own business. Okay. How is that frickin' fair? And how does that make any frickin' sense? Rebelling. I still believed in the frickin' stupid beliefs that Armageddon was coming at that time. I just didn't like any of the beliefs, but I did believe that it was true at that time. And I was rebelling, thinking, oh, well, kill me. Kill me at Armageddon. I don't care. I hate your religion. I don't really think God cares about me anyway. I have these 2 parents that suck. They don't really love me anyway. So fine. I'll just die at Armageddon. Who cares, right? So I started rebelling. I started skipping school. I started doing anything I could to not go to meetings or put up a fight or make it difficult. And that kind of helped a little, actually, because my parents got tired of always trying to force me. So putting up a fight did help some. And, but it did get more violent later. In my teen years, it got much more violent because I'm becoming an adult. But my parents do not want me to grow. Like I said, they wanted me to stay a closed rose, right? No blooming allowed, just a closed rose. And so this goes against all natural instincts. And you can't do this to someone without there being damage. So anyway, I ran away from home one time. I started, going out, doing whatever I wanted, basically. And so that kind of made them say, you know what? Okay, fine. And they kind of let me go. But it wasn't without one more blow up. And so I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was an incident where I called my mom a witch because we were arguing. And my dad did not like that. So he grabbed me by my neck and pushed me against the wall very hard and said, don't you ever call her that again. My dad had never touched me like that in my life. And at that moment, I felt totally and utterly betrayed by him because he had no idea what my mom was doing to me while he was out of town. He had no idea of the abuse that she was putting me and my sibling through while he was out of town. Minimal physical, very minimal physical, but mostly mental abuse and emotional abuse and neglect. No love, no sweet words, no encouragement. Just a girl going to school by herself, coming home to go to her room by herself, watch TV by herself. And that was my life. I had to make my own dinners. I had to eat sandwiches, cereal. My sister did the same thing. And we rarely got any home-cooked meals, ever. Unless my father was around. So all of this made me really feel like this is the most horrible religion, even if it is the truth, even if it is. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I started thinking, fuck God, fuck Jehovah. You know what? If you're going to put me in this position and this is what your religion is, fuck it. Kill me? I don't care. I will die at Armageddon. I don't care. So I started skipping school, flunking school, not caring at all, being very reckless, but at the same time still being responsible because I was smart enough to get on birth control on my own and I was smart enough to protect myself. Somehow, I don't know. I don't know how I had the smarts to do that, but I did. Luckily. And After high school, I moved out. I never got baptized, although I was pressured constantly. My mom always bragged that she was baptized at 5 years old. Ah, good for you. Like you didn't even know what the hell you were doing. Yeah, baptize me. I'm 5. What the hell? It's so dumb. And so my response was, Jesus got baptized at 33. And so I'm not going to get baptized until I'm about 33. That's when Jesus did it. So that seemed logical to me. I wasn't really going to do it, but that was my excuse and it worked. They could not argue with me. How are they going to say Jesus was wrong? So I thought that was pretty funny. And it kind of annoyed my parents. Yeah, so I never got baptized. But I did see a lot of people get baptized, and I always felt like it was so ridiculous. Like, you think just because you're dunked in water that now you're good? No, I don't think so. That doesn't make you a good person. That doesn't cleanse away your sin. You're not safe just because you get dunked underwater, right? What matters is what you do in this life. What matters is how you treat people. Yeah. So after high school, I moved out. I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, his brother, and his brother's girlfriend. And I lied to my parents and told them I was moving in with a friend. They didn't come check. They really didn't give a shit. They never did, honestly. I really don't think they ever cared. They just believed me. Or maybe they just didn't care, right? So that was really hard. Moving in with someone at 18, who I didn't really know very well. It was just this person that I had been with a year maybe, and he seemed fun, but he wasn't really a nice person because I would say this person was somewhat narcissistic, selfish. This person ended up cheating on me. And then call my parents for help because I didn't know what to do. I'm in this apartment with these people. My boyfriend cheated on me, and now I don't want to be here anymore. What do I do, right? So I call them. Hey guys, I need to move. Can you please come help me? They were pretty happy to do it because, you know, anytime there's a failure, narcs love to suck on that failure, right? So they drove up from out of town where they were about 4 hours away to come pick me up with a trailer. They helped me move all my stuff out. My boyfriend, nobody was around at the time when we moved out. And so it wasn't any drama like that or anything. And so I went back home with them, feeling very defeated, tail between legs. I was being told, see, that's what happens. That's what happens when you leave Jehovah. You get with worldly people. That's how they treat you. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I was really broken at that time.